طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Continuing along with Ad-Da' wa Dawa, the sickness and the cure by Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah. Now he goes back to somewhat summarize what he's been talking about for the last several chapters in terms of the punishments for sins. So he says, أما العقوبات القدرية فهي نوعان، نوع على القلوب والنفوس ونوع على الأبدان والأموال. So in terms of the qadri or decreed punishment, there are two types. The type that occurs upon the heart and the soul, and the punishment that occurs upon one's physical body and his wealth. والعقوبات القدرية التي على القلب نوعان. And the one that happens to the punishment that occurs upon the heart is also divided into two categories. أحدهما الآلام الوجودية يضرب بها على القلب. The first one is like the pain or the physical pain that can occur to the heart. So when one falls into sinfulness, like he can actually have physical pain, or his heart can actually become physically ill. And the other one, والثاني قطع المواد التي بحياتها وصلاحها عنه, that it will cut off the beneficial matters that give life to the heart. So when a person indulges in too much sin, those things that we've discussed before that give life to the heart in terms of reading the Quran, remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing the good deeds, they will be cut off. So the person's heart can become physically sick, and it can become spiritually sick from lacking the nutrients of iman and a'mal al-salihah. And then he goes and discusses the uqubat al-qadariyah al-abdan, the punishments that can occur upon the physical bodies as well as the bodies going into the next life. والتي على الأبدان أيضا نوعان، نوع في الدنيا ونوع في الآخرة. And the punishments that can occur upon the body are also of two types, those from this dunya and those from the akhirah. So in brief, the punishments that can happen in the dunya, we said in terms of physically getting sick, maybe losing one of the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you in terms of your eyesight or your health or your bodily functions, losing wealth, being punished in that sense. Or in the next life, when one goes into the grave, we said, especially for believers, if their sins were too much and it was not enough punishment in the dunya, that the pain of death, when the angel of death comes to take your soul, that's a kind of punishment or physical punishment upon the body. If that's not enough, then going into the grave and experiencing the trials and tribulations of the grave. If that's not enough, then upon the sirat, walking across, and then some people will actually be pulled into the hellfire and punished in there. So these are all means of expiating the sins. So the body you can have physical punishment in the dunya, something harmful can happen to you, and if that's not enough, then you can have the spiritual punishment going into the akhirah or in the akhirah.
Just a quick question.
So the person doesn't make tawbah, or if their tawbah was not sufficient or correct. Some people think that they made tawbah, but their tawbah is not accepted. Just as some people, they offer salat, and in the same ranks of the lines of salat, one person can be like in the highest levels, very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the other person has his salat thrown back in his face because he doesn't have no khushu' in it. So the same thing, some people make a sincere tawbah, and they become actually better than they have before committing the sin. And we also mentioned some people, the sin is so great, they don't make a tawbah ever achieving that level, so they require some type of punishment to expiate the sin. Wallahu a'lam. And then he says, فَلَيْسَ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ شَرًّا أَصْلًا إِلَّا الذُّنُوبِ وَأُقُوبَاتِهَا. That there's no real evil in this dunya or in the akhirah except that it goes back, or except for sinfulness and the results of sinfulness. So all evil comes through sayyi'at. All shar comes from the sinfulness. And it is basically the act itself is evil, and the punishment that comes upon it is a form of evil. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, he used to seek refuge from the evil of ourselves and the evil of our actions. كان في كل خطبة صلى الله عليه وسلم يستعيذ منهما في خطبته يقول ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. So the shar, or the evil, is based upon the evil actions or the corruption of the heart. All evil stems from that. And the punishment upon that is also like compensation of evil. وسيئات الأعمال من شرور النفس فعاد الشر كله إلى شر النفس فإن سيئات الأعمال من فروعها وثمراتها. And he's saying that the evil goes back to the evil of the self. We talked about the nafs al-ammaratu bis-su', right? The nafs, the self that encourages evil. And all the sayyat or evil actions come back to that. They stem from that, right? And the result of evil is evil. So if one indulges in evil in this world, he'll get evil in return, either in this world or in the next world. And then the opposite, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows for those who are believers, the angels make dua for them. وَقِهِمْ سَيِّئَاتُ وَمِنْ تَقِ سَيِّئَاتِ يَوْمَئِذٍ فَقَدْ رَحِمْتَ. The angels are saying, oh Allah, save them from the sayyat, the evil actions, and whoever stays away from or protects themselves from the evil actions, فَقَدْ رَحِمْتَ, he has achieved Allah's mercy. وَمَنْ تَقِ السَّيِّئَاتِ يَوْمَئِذٍ فَقَدْ رَحِمْتَ. The one who stays away from the sayyat will have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. أظهر في عقوبات الأعمال المطلوب وقاياتها يومئذ. So those who do the actions that are required of them, it's like they put a waqaya or a barrier between them and the sins. And they save themselves from shururi anfusina, like the evils of ourselves. Then he goes into detail in explaining that, but we've kind of covered it in previous lessons. So he goes on to summarize kind of like all the stuff we've been talking about in a brief couple of pages, to talk about the evil effects of the sins and how they influence the heart and the life. So he said, فاستحضر بعض العقوبات التي رتبها الله سبحانه وتعالى على الذنوب وجوز وصول بعضها إليك واجعل ذلك داعيا للنفس إلى هجرانها وأنا أسوق لك منها طرفا يكفي العاقل مع تصديقي ببعضه. So he's saying that basically reminding oneself of the evil effects of the sins is a way to stay away from them. And he's going to talk, he says, I'm going to talk to you or give you some of a summary of some of those punishments that any logical person, it would be sufficient for him to take heed of and stay away from the sins. The first one he says, فمنها الختم على القلوب والأسماع والغشاوة على الأبصار والإقفال على القلوب. The sealing of the heart and the hearing and the covering of the eyesight and the locks upon the hearts. وجعل الأكنة عليها والرين أو ران عليها والطبع وتقليد الأفئدة والأبصار, and putting a seal upon the hearts or blinding the hearts and covering it. والحلولية بين المرء وقلبه وإغفال القلب عن ذكر رب, and also putting a person like away from a sound heart, and also putting a barrier between you and the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وإنساء الإنسان نفسه وترك إرادة الله تطهير القلب. Also a person forgetting oneself, we talked about that before, and how it will prevent Allah from purifying your heart. وجعل الصدر ضيقا حرجا كأنما يسعد في السماء, and making the heart or the chest like constricted and hard, like he's going up into the air, up into the sky. You know, when you go up into the sky without any type of breathing apparatus, the oxygen is not sufficient, so your heart starts constricting until you die. And that's he's quoting a part of the ayah that shows those who leave belief and indulge in sinfulness, that's how their hearts or their chest become so constricted. And then he goes on and says that القلوب أربع قلب أجرد فيه سراج يزهر في ذلك قلب المؤمن. Like the hearts, there's four types. The one that the light is upon it, and that's like the mu'min, the believer. His light shines, it's pure, it's beautiful. وقلب أغلف فذلك قلب الكافر. And the heart that's sealed, closed, like away from the good, that's the heart of the disbeliever. وقلب منكوس فذاك قلب منافق, and the heart that is like distorted or backwards, and that's the heart of the hypocrite. وقلب تمده مادتان, مادة الإيمان ومادة النفاق, وهو لما غلب عليه منهما. And then the fourth category of hearts are those that are mixed between iman and nifaq. And he's saying that whichever one takes precedence over, that's the one he's closest to. And he's saying the other categories of hearts that you can classify is التثبيت عن الطاعة أو الإقعاد عنها. The hearts that are made firm upon obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or those that are not able to do so. ومنها جعل القلب أصم لا يسمع أبكم لا ينطق به أعمى لا يرى فتصير النسبة بين القلب وبين الحق الذي لا ينفعه غيره كالنسبة بين أذن الأصم والأصوات وعين الأعمى والأنوان. So he's saying that the hearts that become deaf and they cannot hear, or mute, they cannot talk, or blind and they cannot see. So the hearts become like, a deaf person to sounds. Like a deaf person can't hear the sounds. Or a blind person to colors. A blind person can't see. He can't see the colors. وَلِسَانِ الْأَخْرَسِ وَالْكَلَامِ, or the mute person and speech. The mute person cannot speak correctly, right? So he's saying a sick heart, a corrupted heart, it's like these type of people. You have the tool here, but it's of no benefit to you, right? Just like some of the blind people have eyes, but they can't see it with. Or some deaf people, they have ears, but they can't hear with it. Or some mute people, they have tongues, but they cannot speak with it. So that's like the heart of a mu'min, a believer, that's not benefiting him. He's indulged in too much sin, so his heart is sealed, right? He's not using the tool that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him as a gift in the service of Allah. He's unable to use it. And then he quotes the ayah, فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْأَبْصَارُ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. It doesn't blind the eyes, but it blinds the hearts that are in the chests, right? وليس المراد نفي العمي الحسي عن البصر كيف وقد قال الله تعالى ليس على الأعمى حرج. So the meaning of this ayat is not taking away the eyesight from those who, the vision, like the physical eyesight. And how can that be? As he says, Allah says, ليس على الأعمى حرج. The blind person is not required, or does not held to account because of his blindness. So he's saying this ayat means basically the blindness of the heart. When the heart is sealed, it's blind to the truth. It's blind to the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It can't distinguish between right and wrong anymore. It's so sick that evil becomes good in its sight. That's the heart that's become blind. That's the heart that he's talking about. Then he talks about from the other punishments of the sinfulness upon the heart is خسف القلب. خسف القلب كما يخسف بالمكان وما فيها فيخسف به إلى أسفل السافلين. So khasf is like basically being sucked under, like the potholes, or what do you call that thing when like the earth just, sinkhole, like a sinkhole. Yeah, like what happened to the Qarun as a punishment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let the earth like suck him in all his possessions. So he's saying there's a heart like that also. فيخسف به إلى الأسفل السافلين وصاحبه لا يشعر. وعلامة الخسف به أنه لا يزال جوالا حول السفليات والقاذورات والرذائل كما أن القلب الذي رفعه الله وقربه إليه لا يزال جوالا حول العرش. So he's saying that this type of sinkhole of the heart sinking down to the lowest of low, and the sign of that is when he doesn't basically notice the good around him, and he's always around evilness or low characteristics or those things that pull you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a sign, like a person, if he's always around evil, surrounding himself with bad company, being pleased with stuff that's displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taking pleasure in those things that Allah has made haram, that's a sign that his heart is makhsuf, like that it's been put down to the low of the low. As the opposite, he says, the believer's heart, the true believer that's away from this type of evilness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifts him to the highest of the high, and he's close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's like Jawal Hawl al-Arsh, like he's flying around the Arsh of Ar-Rahman, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the believers that reach such a high level of Iman, they're in that state, like they're basically like the malaika, basically their iman is so high, they feel like they're so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This dunya, which means dana, bringing you down, is not bringing them down. They're like flying up. Their soul is light, right? And that's the opposite of al-khasf. And then he says, the other category is masakh al-qalb, like distorting or corrupting the heart. فَيَمْسَخُ كَمَا تَمْسَخَ الصُّورَةِ, and it's distorted or corrupted like the picture is or the person's physical being becomes corrupted. Like, you know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed some of the children of Israel into monkeys or pigs as a punishment? That's called masakh, like when Allah changes a person's physical picture. And the Prophet ﷺ said also about the one who precedes the imam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might turn his head into like the head of a donkey, for example. And there's many amthal in the Quran that talk about hayawanat. This is the type of masakh he's talking about. فيصير القلب على قلب الحيوان الذي شابهه في أخلاقه وأعماله وطبيعته. So his heart becomes like an animal that he's most likely imitating in his character or his action or his nature. So if a person's nature becomes like that of certain animals, he's saying that he starts taking on the characteristics of those animals. And he'll say also physically as well as spiritually. فمن القلوب ما يمسخ على قلب خنزير لشدة الشبه صاحبه به. So some of their hearts become like the hearts of, or become like the pigs basically, because of the characteristics that they have compared to the pigs. Like what kind of characteristic would that be? Huh? You said filth? How, like liking dirty things, yeah, filthy things, for example, or greed, like it's, sometimes they call people, like when you want to insult somebody, you're being a pig because you're so greedy, you eat so much. Or they say male chauvinist pig, like a person that just, looks at women as objects as opposed to human beings, stuff like that. So he's saying that certain sins will make a person's heart become like that of the pig, right? And they take on the characteristics of the pig. ومنها ما يمسخ على خلق قلب كلب أو حمار أو حية أو عقرب وغير ذلك. And some they will turn to the characteristics of a dog or a donkey or a snake or a scorpion and others. وهذا تأويل سفيان بن عيينة رحمه الله في قوله تعالى وما من دابة في الأرض ولا طائر يطير بجاحيه إلا أمثالكم. Imam Sufyan ibn Uyayna rahimahullah, he made the tafsir of this ayah. There's nothing of creatures in the earth or things that fly in the air with their wings, except that there are similar creations of it. So Imam Sufyan ibn Uyayna rahimahullah, he's saying that the tafsir of this ayah, that there's like a comparison of all the different animals to human beings. There are certain human beings that act like certain animals. منهم من يكون على أخلاق السباع العادية. Some of them become like the predatory animals, predatory beasts like lions and wolves. ومنهم من يكون على أخلاق الكلاب وأخلاق الخنازير وأخلاق الحمير. And some of them become like the characteristic of the dogs, or the characteristic of pigs, or the characteristics of donkeys. ومنهم من يطوس في ثيابه كما يطوس في ريشه. Some of them like become so like flamboyant, like the what's that bird translated? It's called peacock, right? Huh? No, he said taus. He said taus. The taus is I think the peacock. Yeah. So it's it's showing off its feathers and its he said some people, they take so much pride in their dress and their outward characteristic. They're kind of like this bird in that characteristic of showing off. Himari yahmil al-asfara. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the mithal in the Quran. Allah compares those who have carrying books upon them, their backs, but not acting upon the knowledge. Like the donkey is carrying books upon his back, it's not benefiting from the knowledge. Oh, kal kilbi in tatruku yalhath. Like the dog, if you leave it, it's always like putting its tongue out and always thirsty, basically. So Allah draws many amthal in the Quran of hayawanat, and it's like this Imam is saying it's a comparison for those who take on their characteristics. And he also talks about there's some like nice animals too, like the pigeon, gentle and kind, or like the sheep, and he said that's one of the best mithal, because the sheep, they're kind of like innocent and pure and they follow their leader, right? And then he said there's some that are like wolves or snakes preying upon the innocent sheep, trying to misguide them or take them, like the stray sheep, take them from the flock, attack them. Or the snakes, when they sneak around and they jump on people unexpectedly. So he's saying that's also, so there's certain people that have that characteristic. They're like wolves, they prey on innocent. Or they're like snakes, they're sneaking, they try to betray people. And he's saying that these characteristics, when a person becomes so indulged in that, like for example in greed or being sneaky or trying to be deceitful and stuff like that, he said the mu'min, he has like firasa, or she has firasa, so they can see sometimes things that other people can't really see. So he's saying to some believers, even to some regular people, these characteristics become manifest in the person's physical being too. Like he starts looking a little bit like a wolf, or he starts looking like a little bit like a pig, or like the bad characteristics come take a physical appearance to those who have the farasa. The Imam gets into that, saying that. And then he talks about نكس القلب حتى يرى الباطل حقا والحق باطلا والمعروف منكرا والمنكر معروفا. That the heart becomes like distorted to the point that it becomes like seeing the opposites. It sees the truth as falsehood, it sees falsehood as truth. It sees good as evil and evil as good. ويفسد ويرى أنه يصلح. And he does evil and he thinks that he's doing good. ويصد عن سبيل الله وهو يرى أنه يدعو إليها. And he's preventing people from the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he thinks that he's calling people to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ويشتري ضلالة بالهدى. And he's buying misguidance with guidance. وهو يرى أنه على الهدى ويتبع هواه وهو يزعم أنه مطيع لمولاه. And he thinks that he's following guidance, but he's upon misguidance. And he thinks that he's obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he's being disobedient to him. وكل هذا من عقوبات الذنوب الجارية على القلوب. And all of these are punishments that occur upon the hearts. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows a person when he gets misguided to the point of not taking heed anymore. These are the punishments that Allah can send upon the heart. And then he says, حجب القلب عن الرب. One of the worst forms he ends with this in this chapter, the sealing of the heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. حجاب القلب عن الرب في الدنيا والحجاب الأكبر يوم القيامة كما قال الله تعالى كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون. He said that there's two types of hajj. The seal, or in this dunya, in this earthly life, you're being prevented to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the greater one, or the most severe one, the greatest punishment, to be sealed from your Lord on the Yawm al-Qiyamah. And we talked about this before. One of the greatest gifts of a believer, of a mu'min, is to see your Lord, to see the one who created you, right? And the opposite, the greatest punishment, is to be of those who are mahjubun. They are sealed from seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فمنعتهم الذنوب أن يقطعوا المسافة بينهم وبين قلوبهم فيصلوا إليها فيرى ما يصلحها ويزكيها وما يفسدها ويشقيها وأن يقطعوا المسافة بين قلوبهم وبين ربهم فتصل القلوب إليه فتفوز بقربه وكرامته وتقر به عينا وتطئ به نفسا بل كانت الذنوب حجابا بينهم وبين ربهم وخالقهم. So basically the sins became a barrier to him and to his Lord, and he wasn't able to get close to Allah, he wasn't able to connect to Allah and do the good deeds, because the sin was, the heart was sealed, it was covered, it has hijab between it and between Allah Azza wa Jal. And we seek refuge in Allah from that. And then he goes also from the evil effects of sins, al-ma'ishat al-danka, like the miserable life. المعيشة الضنك في الدنيا وفي البرزخ والعذاب في الآخرة قال الله تعالى ومن أعرض عن ذكري فإن له معيشة ضنكا ونحشره يوم القيامة عاما. So the miserable life in this dunya, in the barzakh, between now and the next life, and in the afterlife, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him an evil abode. وفسرت المعيشة الضنك بعذاب القبر. And some scholars did the tafsir saying that the miserable life is in the punishment of the grave. ولا ريب أنه من معيشة الضنك والآية تتناول ما هو أعم من ذلك. And he said, and there's no doubt this is true. Ma'ishta danka can also be in the grave, but this ayah is general. It covers the misery of this life, in the grave, in the akhirah. You know, like for the believer, subhanAllah, he's going to go into it now also. What is the good life or ma'ishta tayyiba? If you read in the Quran, you find ما عندكم ينفد وما عند الله باق ونرجن الذين صبروا أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. That which is with you will be finished, it will go away. But that which is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will last. And we will surely pay or recompense the patient with a great reward for what they used to do. Right? And then right after that, talking about طيبة. So the opposite of dank is طيبة. من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فنحيينه حياة طيبة ونجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. Whoever acts righteously, male or female, and he is of the faithful or she is of the faithful, believing, we shall give them a good life and reward them in the best way for what they used to do. Right? So that's in this life. Also in the middle part, الذين تتوفاهم الملائكة طيبين أنفسهم أو طيبين يقولون سلام عليكم. The angels take away their souls طيبين, in a good way. So we have the first part, the believers have a nice life in this world. Also when you're being departed from this world, the angels taking your soul, you have it in a good way, as opposed to the believers have it in the worst way. And then in the akhirah, وسيق الذين اتقوا ربهم إلى الجنة زمرا حتى إذا جاءوها وفتحت أبوابها وقال لهم خزنتها السلام عليكم طبتم. That when you're entering into the gates of paradise and the 8 keepers or the angels will say Assalamu alaikum طبتم. Again, طيبة العيش. So good life in this world when your soul is being taken, and in the akhirah. That's for the believer. The disbeliever or the one who is a corrupt person or evil person, he has danka in this world, in the barzakh, and in the akhirah. فإنه سبحانه وتعالى رتب المعيشة الضنكة على الإعراض عن ذكره. Allah caused this miserable life for those who have turned away from His remembrance. من أعرض عن الذكر فإنه المعيشة ضنكة. فالمعرض عنه له من الضنك والمعيشة بحسب إعراضه عنه. That the person who will have a miserable life depending on how much he turns away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the more one is away from Allah, the more miserable the life will be. No matter how much wealth or how much, material possessions you have, even if he's turning away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will not have ma'ishtan tayyibah, he won't have a good life. He will have ma'ishtan danka. That's why we see like some of the billionaires or some of those who are the most successful in this dunya, apparently, they have so many miseries and so many sufferings, depression, they have to take pills, they're getting exposed, embarrassing stuff on national TV in front of everybody, their name is being ruined, even though they apparently have all the material stuff, but they're missing that spiritual aspect. So their life is dank, right? ففي قلبه من الوحشة والذلة والحسرات التي تقطع القلوب. In their hearts are like anxiety and disgrace and regret that destroys the heart or cuts up the heart. والأماني الباطلة والعذاب الحاضرة. And they have like false hopes, false desires, false like fake dreams that they think they're going to achieve, but they're really in reality they have a miserable time. وإنما يواريه عنه السكرات الشهوات والعشق وحب الدنيا والرئاسة وإن لم ينضم إلى ذلك السكر الخمر فيسكر فهذه الأمور أعظم من سكر الخمر. He's saying like the life or the love of this dunya in general is making a person drunk in the sense they don't realize what's good for them. Even more so than wine can make a drunkard person act. When a person drinks wine, he's in a stupor, he doesn't really know what he's doing right or wrong. He doesn't really understand or comprehend his actions. So he's saying like the love of this dunya and the greed for it and following, for its trying to achieve ri'as, like leadership and trying to sacrifice all this stuff for it, the person is in a stupor or a drunken state greater than the one who is drinking wine physically, because the dunya warps the person's heart and it warps the person's mind so much he doesn't realize what he's doing. He doesn't know that he's doing wrong. He doesn't care. Like if you ask a person, what's a good life? You know, like I'll ask you guys, what's a good life? Inshallah, you say. Okay, what's a good life? Anybody? I hope you know what a good life is so you can live one, inshallah. Anything? Huh?
Trick question.
It's a trick question maybe, but for you guys it shouldn't be. Being successful? Okay. How? Being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the most success you can have, inshallah. Yeah, if you're close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for a mu'min, a believer, that's the true success. من زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة فقد فاز. That who is saved from the hellfire and enters into paradise has achieved success. Right? That's the true success. But you'll find, like for example, the poor person, he thinks that if I can get money, then my problems will be solved. I'll be happy. That's the good life, hayatun tayyibah, for the poor person. The sick person who's suffering from illnesses, he'll think that his success, his happy life, achieving happiness is to be healthy, to be cured from his sickness, right? The oppressed person, the weak person under a dictator, he'll think that if he achieves power, that's his success. So people always look, in general, they get fooled by the dunya and they look to success from dunyawi lens. But the mu'min, the believer, he looks in this ayah. Allah says, whoever does good deeds and has iman will have a successful life. So the true success, the true happy life in this dunya and the akhirah is being with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, no matter what you accumulate from the dunya, if you're not with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't have a real happy life. At the end of the day, this whole life is 1 hour. That's it. يوما أو بعد يوم ساعة من نهار. It's nothing. It's going to be gone like a blink of an eye. You know. So if you have like لذة ساعة والندم الدهر, like a pleasure, a brief pleasure, and then a regret forever. Or is it better to have, you know, صبر ساعة واللذة الدهر, like be patient for this 1 hour and you have eternal pleasure, right? It's a deception. We fall for it because we just see the here and now. We don't realize it's ending. It's running away from us. Like we're chasing after it, but it's running away from us and we can't catch it. Like every single day that passes, our life has gone away. We can never get it back. You know, you keep looking like when you're young, oh, when I turn such and such, I'll be able to drive. Or when I graduate from college, I'm gonna graduate from high school. When I graduate from college, all this stuff keeps happening and it's just moving. Like you think it's gonna take forever, but then it happens just like that. In your life, your years are gone. Calculate how many hours you've spent in your life doing frivolous stuff. Just take sleep. You know, if a person, like, they recommend 8 hours of sleep a day generally. You know, I don't think we need that much, but you know, I've talked to some doctors if we don't need that much. But just say 8 hours a day. That's 1/3 of your life gone. Sleep. We'll take. So if you live 75 years, that's 25 years gone. You have 50 left. All right, then calculate your driving, your eating, your meetings, getting togethers, all this stuff. Calculate how much time is spent in frivolous things and how much time is spent with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we talked about before, like Imam Ibn Qayyim said, all the other time that's not spent with Allah or in the service of Allah or doing good deeds is time wasted and it's not counting as true life. Right? So sit back one day and you know, maybe even tonight before you sleep and take account of yourself. Like ask yourself, how many hours have I spent obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala today in my life? You know, how much lifetime, what can I do with the time that I have left we don't even know how much time we have left. Inshallah, you take advantage of your life before your life is gone. Take account of yourself before you're held to account by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says that the heart doesn't become tranquil or safe or at peace except with being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you can't get true pleasure except with being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he recites the ayah, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فنحيينه حياة طيبة ونرجينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. That those who do the good deeds from male or female and they're a believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will give them a nice life and we will reward them with the best that they used to do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so generous and so merciful. He's not just going to give you like a reward according to what you deserve, but to the best of what you do. And even more, you know. Because Allah, He's given you the faculties, He's given you life, He's given you everything just to if you use it in the right way, and He'll give you so much more. Like, it's a business deal that no one would ever offer. Like, I give you everything, and I just ask you to use it for something that's going to benefit yourself, and then I'm going to reward you for that. Right? No one in the dunya will do that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the most merciful, the most kind, the all-loving. He gives you this. He gives you your life. He says, do this, it's going to benefit you. I don't need nothing from you. I don't need any food, I don't need any wealth, I don't need any recompensation. Just use this amana, this trust, this gift I gave you in your body, in your heart, in your soul, for your own good, and I will give you much, much more. مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمَعَتْ وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. No eye has ever seen, no ear has ever heard. No one can even imagine. The greatest thing, the greatest pleasure you can imagine in this dunya, the greatest, whatever you can have, it's nothing compared to akhirah. It doesn't equal. للذين أحسنوا في هذه الدنيا حسنة ولدار الآخرة خير ولنعم الدار المتقين. Those who do good in this world, and the blessings of the akhirah are even better, and the dar of the pious is like everlasting. Dar al-muttaqin. That's the, so اليوم العمل بلا حساب. Like, you have actions and you're not held to account yet. And the next life is hisab and no more amal. Like, you can't do any more works after you die. Your time is cut, your test is over. There's no retakes. And then you take into account. So get that concept in your head before it's too late. When استغفر ربكم ثم توبوا إليه يمتعكم متاعا حسنا إلى أجل مسمى ويؤتي كل فضل فضله. And seek forgiveness from your Lord and repent to Him, He will give you a nice sojourn, متاعا حسنا, in this world. He'll make your life easy for you. If you see the true mu'min, the true believer, when you read about the salaf, the seerah of those scholars, and even nowadays, those people that are true believers, even if they're living like financially not that well, but subhanAllah, they have like a happiness in their heart. They're so content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. They're so thankful for just the littlest of things, because they know it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not greedy, they don't covet the dunya, they don't hate one another for dunyawi purposes, right? They're just so happy with what Allah has given them, and they live such a peaceful life. They go to bed, as the hadith that we talked about before, when the Prophet ﷺ said, this is a person from Ahl al-Jannah, and then Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu followed this person around to see what he did extra, and he found that he didn't do much of extra fasting or prayers, and he asked him after 3 days spending time with him, the Prophet said, you are a person of paradise, like, what's your secret, what do you do? I watched you, you don't do extra more than we do. He said, I don't know, I don't do much, but every night before I go to sleep, I make sure I don't have any hard feelings in my heart against any Muslim or anybody, right? So he has hayatun tayyiba, even in this dunya. If a person throws dirt at you or tries to like make you upset, it doesn't bother you, because your goals are higher than that, right? The problems of the dunya, they can attribute to basically three main, I guess, barriers, that cause one to have hardship of the dunya. And it's the stuff we talked about before. So, jahal, ignorance, or su'al dhan billah, like having bad thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shahawat, and the shaitan, basically, shayateen al-insi wal jinn. Those three things are like the barriers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that prevent one from achieving hayat al-tayyibah. So, jahl, the cure for that, ignorance, being ignorant of your religion, being ignorant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having bad thoughts about Allah. The trick that falls upon some people is that we talked about before, how like you can't ask for tawbah, you've done too much bad. That's having bad thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So that's all a result of ignorance, and the cure of that is ilm, knowledge, learning about your deen, learning what's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, learning how to cure the sickness of the heart so you can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the other barrier, as we talked about before, shahawat, the desires, the lower desires. Like all of us have shahawat, we all have desires, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave us a way to use them in a halal manner that we will get blessings for it. You can't eat pork or drink wine, but you can eat how many other halal things. How many beautiful drinks of fruits that you can drink. You're not supposed to commit fornication or adultery, but you can get married. So Allah knows we have shahwat, but He gives us ways to use it in a halal manner. So the opposite of your lower desires, you do it by obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, staying away from the haram, doing the fara'id and doing the sunan, right? And then doing those things that you have desires for in the halal manner. That's the cure for the shahwat. And then the shaitan, to learn, like we said, the deception of the shaitan, his tricks, how to get away from it, how to not keep bad company, how to not be deceived by those who are away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's do the opposite, which is keep good company, keep the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The shaitan encourages you to forget Allah, to stop reading the book of Allah, the Quran, His words, to be associated with people who are going to bring you down. So you do the opposite. You remember Allah, you read the Quran, you hang around good people, and control the tongue, like we talked about many times. I just read recently a beautiful statement. It said that, on the Day of Judgment, you cannot give one hasanat to the most beloved people to you. You can't help your mom, your dad, your son, your daughter, your brother, your sister, your spouse, your closest of best friends. You can't give them one hasanat on the Day of Judgment. But the worst of the worst, those that you actually despised, you give them mountains of hasanat because you dirtied your tongue with backbiting or namima or ghiba or these type of sins of the tongue, right? So imagine that you can't give it to someone you love, but you're going to be taken from you and forced to give it to someone that you dislike. So be very careful about the tongue. Those are the three main cures or the three main barriers to hayat tayyiba, and those are the three main cures, the opposites basically. Some scholars, they say too, be very careful not to have huzn. Like huzn, grief, sadness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not related in the Quran except as Allah is forbidding us from it. La tahzanu, don't grieve. Or negation, like not allowing grief, like the believers. وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. They don't have grief. So it's always like negated in the Quran. So a Muslim, a mu'min, he should try his best to avoid having depression or grief or sadness and stuff like that. And know anything that's so hard that happens in the dunya, there's always a way out. And what comes in the next life is even better. So always have hope, right? If something bad happens to you, be patient. Something good will come. Always expect good from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala no matter what. Don't ever grieve or be miserable or think that this is it, this is the end. The other thing is being attached to the dunya. Like don't ever put your hopes, all your aspirations into one individual or one thing. Like people, they think that this is the here and end all. If I don't achieve this, then I'm failed. Or if I don't, be with this person, for example, I failed. Don't ever think like that. Don't always put your hopes on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost, right? Everything else is come and go. But if you're connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will protect you and He will give you that which you need. And don't, they say, call it having false aspirations, A Muslim, he's one of action. Like you don't just live in la la land and have these goals and dreams and stuff like that, but never do anything. Like always work, always have action. وَسَعْيَهَا لَهَا. They struggled for it, they worked for it to get to Jannah. That's your main purpose, to get the good life in this dunya and akhirah. If you put your goal, your mission statement is, please Allah, get to paradise, right? Then you put all the plans, how can I achieve these things? That's your mission statement in the dunya basically, right? You figure that out. That's how I'm going to live. That's how I'm going to achieve it. That's how I want to get to Jannah. You plan for that. Then everything else you build around that. That's how the true Muslim is. So we'll pause here, inshallah. If anybody has any comments or questions or benefits, jazakumullah khair.